Hey guys, so today we're going to be learning how to prevent bubbles or get rid of them. So you can either prevent them in the beginning stages when you're mixing your resin, or you can get rid of them once you've already poured your resin. So today we're going to be using, it's called Old Login Epoxy. Let me turn it around. I've switched over to this one and I really do like it. It doesn't have too much bubbles, so we're actually going to create some bubbles to show you what to do. So I have my little cups, so I'm going to be showing you different ways to get rid of the bubbles. But I know one way you can prevent bubbles from even before you mix is to make sure that your resin is at like a thinner viscosity. So making sure that your temperature in your room is around like 73 to 75. It thins out that part A, which is the thicker part, and it makes it easier to pour so that you're not really creating those air bubbles or air pockets. So that's one way, of course, is in the resin you choose. I'm gonna go ahead and pour part B first, which is the thinner portion. And up to 250. And this is my part A. I'm gonna go ahead and pour that in my cup. There. All right, so we have our resin poured. So step number one to avoiding bubbles is not to use a wooden stick. Wooden sticks are porous, so they have like little spaces that the resin can kind of seep through a little bit, and it creates bubbles. So we don't want to use that for mixing. That's one. If you have a resin that is maybe more prone to having bubbles or more known of having bubbles, then you can give your resin like a warm bath, either your entire bottles into like a huge gallon of warm water, or you can just put your cup that you're using as your mixing cup into like a Tupperware of warm water, and that will basically thin out the two portions so that it's easier to mix and less thick to create the air bubbles. So as you see, I'm not mixing fast, I'm mixing slowly. That's another way of preventing bubbles, is mixing slowly. I'm using a silicone stick. These can be purchased. I buy mine on Amazon. I'm sure they're available at craft stores now, like Michael's and Hobby Lobby. And they're reusable, so after you use it and it cures overnight or 24 hours, you can actually peel the resin that was left on there off. So I'm just mixing really slowly. And this resin requires that you mix for a minimum of 3 minutes. So I have a few more minutes of mixing. And I'm making sure to scrape the sides, the bottom. Just about mixed. Okay. So I have 1 more minute of mixing, and then we can divide them into the cups. You just want to make sure that there are no streaks and that it looks like it's one homogeneous liquid. You want it to be one mixture, and it shouldn't separate at all. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is go ahead and divvy this between my 4 cups. I have 4 little paper cups. And as you see, there's hardly any bubbles in here. So we're gonna create some bubbles. So I'm gonna do some in here. So I'm gonna put my mixture aside, and so I have my 4 cups. So we're going to create bubbles in 3 of these. And then in this last one, we're just gonna let it sit. We're not gonna touch it. We're not gonna spray anything. We're just gonna let that one sit. So for the first 3, I'm gonna use the same wooden stick probably. Let's create some bubbles. So I'm moving up and through the resin, creating air pockets, mixing fast. I'm doing all the no-nos. Oh, there's actually a bubble that flew up. There's a few bubbles that landed in there, so I'm gonna show you. If you can see that, a few bubbles in there. That's small, tiny ones. So that's some in there. Let's make some in here. Trying. Okay, I got some in there. And make some in here. Basically just attacking the resin and creating like air pockets to create the bubbles. So, okay. So I had already poured this first layer of these coasters a couple of days ago. What I'm doing now is basically clear coating or top coating them. So I'm gonna go ahead and now pour them in, and I'll show you that they do have bubbles in there. I'm just putting the excess back in though. There to the tippity top. Okay. So these 3 have the bubbles. So here's another view of what the bubbles will look like. They probably will look worse if you have resin that maybe creates bubbles on its own. Okay, so there's 3 ways that we're gonna get rid of the bubbles. So for one coaster, we're gonna show you getting rid of them with a heat gun. for another one by like popping the bubbles manually, which is really hard. And the third is showing you with alcohol. This is isopropyl alcohol, 99% from Amazon. That's in this little water bottle. And this last one, like we said, has been sitting. So I'll pour that one in a minute, but I'm gonna let it keep sitting for a while. So let's do the manual one first. This one's hard, but you're literally popping the bubbles that you see. And of course, if they're micro bubbles, then you can't really pop them, but the ones that you can see, you pop. And so this is just like a dotting tool. You can get this at any craft store. You can even use a toothpick. And that's usually for like the bigger bubbles that are like seen on the edge of your molds. You can pop them. Okay, that's probably all that I can pop from that. Okay, so that was my dotting tool, not really effective. And then the next one we're gonna show you is with our heat gun. This is also from Amazon. It'll be linked in my description, so I'll show you that. And the heat actually works pretty well. See, like a piece went in there. Yep, heat actually works pretty well. So the majority of the bubbles are gone for that one. I'm actually gonna use heat on the second one because I feel like it can fix a couple of issues that I had. All right. And then for this one, we're gonna spray with alcohol. This one is super effective. I usually do this regardless if I'm using my heat gun or poking them. I always kind of end up spraying them with alcohol just to make sure everything is popped. That's like one for sure way to get rid of them. So now, this one that has been sitting for a little while, I'm gonna go ahead and pour this one in the mold. And as you know, it's only been sitting for about 5 minutes. Usually I'll let it sit longer, like maybe 10 minutes. But as you see, there literally are no bubbles in this. And so basically what you did when you were allowing it to sit is to pop the bubbles on its own. So all the bubbles had a chance to rise to the top of the resin and pop. I'll finish it off by just spraying it just in case, but there's nothing there to spray. So now we have all 4 of our coasters with no bubbles. So I would recommend letting it sit as preference number 1. You don't have to let it sit long, at least like 8 to 10 minutes, depending on your resin and how much time you have to use it. In second place, probably heat gun. I really like using the heat gun. Heat gets rid of the bubbles pretty quickly. Probably tied as well is alcohol. That one is a pretty good way to get rid of the bubbles. And last place is poking it. That's probably the most difficult way, and it's not always guaranteed. So that is the video. Thank you for watching. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment, and I'll be sure to try to answer them as quickly as possible. But thank you for watching. Bye.